everyone, good evening. Miki Jacobs here. Thank you very much for joining Angel Chat. As always, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much. I hope you had a fantastic Memorial Day weekend. I hope you safe and fun and joyful and was able to relax with family and friends. Today we're going to talk about forgiveness. Spiritual forgiveness it is. The reason I like to mention spiritual forgiveness, because of course, as you know, over the weeks that there's always a completely different explanation, or rather the view of spirituality rather than the mind, the personality of planet Earth. And forgiveness is no different. Meaning that when we say forgiveness, whether it is to a person, to ourselves, to anything that we have to apply forgiveness in life, when it's come to the mind perspective of forgiveness, of course, like a lot of other things in the mind, that it's very conditional. Conditional. I mean, how many times we look back in our past and we realize that we try to forgive with our mind when in fact every single thing can aggravate, and we can remember that we angry again, or the forgiveness come with condition. Depends how the other person gonna act to us, depends how the other person how much they ask for our forgiveness. So indeed, forgiveness of the physical mind is very much limited because it's shallow, if you will, which has to do with a lot of things that the mind have. It doesn't quite go to the root of the cause, the root of spiritual forgiveness, as I like to call it, which we're going to touch in a minute. So when you realize that you forgive someone for whatever, whether it is something major or something minor, if you realize that your forgiveness have strings attached to it, meaning perhaps it's conditional and it's go up and down. One day you forgive when the other day you decided not to forgive, or of course, as I said, which is very common by the mind, depends as to how the other person greet or welcome your forgiveness. If we leave it to the mind, to the personality to forgive, then it's have to be, it's kind of like a bottomless pit. Specifically, if someone hurt our feeling in a major thing, then we request, we demand, or rather our mind demand a lot back, and then we're going to forgive. So it's shallow. It's not really real forgiveness. So my work here, of course, is to teach you what spiritual forgiveness is, which is the only forgiveness that's going to stick. It's a forgiveness that it's of the soul, of course, like any other thing. When it's something that it's of the soul, it's deeper, it's more meaningful, it's more real, if you will. So, what does that mean, forgiveness of the soul? It's kind of have to do with a lot of things to apply a real forgiveness of spirituality. First of all, you need to understand the concept of carry unforgiveness, our unforgiveness within your auric field, as I think about it, or even resentment. It doesn't have to be something major. When we do not forgive the action of someone else, it's a great amount of loss of an energy to us. So even from the perspective of being selfish, if you will, which selfish is not always a bad word, to put ourselves first, you do not want to carry any forgiveness on yourself. From the perspective of energy, unforgiveness is very, very heavy. And again, it's important for you to bring to your attention again that we're not talking about forgiveness for something really big. Even resentment, everyday to-day life that you have with your partner or kids or sibling or friends, you don't want to carry that on you. It's very, very important that in your daily routine you clear up your auric field of anything, and one of the major things is forgiveness, whether it is from the day before, a year before, or childhood, because forgiveness have its own heavy energy, so you don't want it on yourself. So that's important to remember, because like any spiritual topic, if you understand the concept of the energy of unforgiveness on your field, around your surrounded aura, it's not good for you. And when it's prolonged for too long, it's indeed very heavy on the spirit, very heavy on the mind, and your spirit would sink, meaning it would cause you to be aggravated, to have not a smooth life. So you need to apply that concept, and you need to understand it, and again, you needed to know to be so. This is what it is. You do not want to carry with you unforgiveness, whether it is heavy or light or whatever it was done to you, meaning it doesn't matter when. Another very important way is to look at forgiveness from a spiritual perspective, as if you've heard me talk about previous topics, that we do not know really the bigger picture as to why people do things the way they do. Everything have the perspective of the growth of all souls involved. Even things that were done to you in the past that are very hurtful, that were very challenging for you to overcome, even that is indeed a part of your growth. Everything is a part of your growth. So when you look at the perspective of the soul about things that happen to you, things that you experience, you cannot really judge by the amount of how difficult it was, judge that for yourself, meaning that you have to truly and authentically believe that sometimes things that have conflicts or things that people do, hurt your feeling, are indeed a potential for growth. So when you think in another human being in that way, that perhaps what happened with another human being, it's not matter of forgive or not forgive, it's matter of just looking at the incident and see what is the potential for the growth that were behind it, or rather underneath it. Another thing, it's called unjudgmental. You also cannot judge another human being as to their behavior. First of all, logic, to apply common sense to it. Everything that people did to us, we certainly did to other people. It's just fellow human being. It's just what we are. I mean, we ourselves probably at one point or another hurt other human beings as well. We were not always spiritual. We were not always aware of our behavior. I'm sure when we were younger, of course, including myself, I hurt other people, of course. It was part of who Miki is now. It was part of our growth. It was part of the soul learning lesson through the personality. It's part of me knowing now how I feel if I hurt someone else. How did it feel to me when someone hurt me? So the point about someone doing something to you or hurting your feeling, and when you understand the perspective of no one is perfect, everyone is here in order to learn, some in different ways than others, then it's easier to apply a spiritual forgiveness. It's just easier because, again, if you truly and authentically understand that underneath the human being that hurt your feeling, remember, as I always tell you in previous topic, that there is always the perspective of the soul within that human being, and you do not know where that human being is in his spiritual awareness. You do not know what that human being need in order to learn. So when encounter of two people is hurtful, there is of course growth from both sides. The side that received the hurtful behavior supposed to learn to forgive. That is when you can apply your non-judgmental attitude towards the other human being, understanding the other human being, remembering or rather recalling that you yourself, of course, whether it is in your present time or your past, you yourself did it to other human beings. So that is an opportunity to apply spiritual forgiveness. And then you remember that things, no one is perfect. Everyone is struggling. Whether some people do it by lashing out on other human beings, on themselves, whether, there are various ways in which we express our growth or express our weaknesses or even work on our weaknesses. So forgiveness is very, of course, every topic, I know that you hear me say that in the past, every topic is very important to understand fully and authentically, so you will be able to apply the information, or rather apply the guidance, apply the advice. Otherwise, the mind gonna take over and you will find yourself half forgiving, which is not really authentically spiritual forgiveness. Is that mean that if you are able to apply spiritual forgiveness, meaning you apply it to yourself, you know that you did things like that before and you were asking for forgiveness before, you are able to remember that the other human being is indeed not perfect, you are able to remember that there is growth in any interaction between two people, whether it is people you know or complete strangers? So even when you apply spiritual forgiveness, it doesn't mean that it's pleasant. Of course it's not pleasant. The same way we were talking about other topic, about death and about, things are unpleasant because we live in a physical body with a mind and emotion. So is that mean that because I can apply spiritual forgiveness, I cannot be hurt by others? Of course it doesn't mean that. But it's mean that I'm able to limit the amount of time because I'm able to apply the spiritual forgiveness out. It helps you to be less hurtful, if you will, because you rely on the spiritual aspect of the forgiveness and not the mind. So try to understand what it is that I mean by a spiritual forgiveness, and observe within yourself if you have to do some major forgiveness to another person in your mind. Practice it as a spiritual growth, because when you apply spiritual forgiveness to another human being, that's a great lift up, or a great you raise up in awareness. It is very important for us to learn how to forgive on planet Earth. Again, whether it is to someone you know or whether it is to something you hear on television, because if you don't forgive, if you don't apply spiritual forgiveness, you judge. Judgment and unforgiveness go hand in hand. So when you learn not to judge, not to be upset, not to be hurt, that doesn't mean that you're going to be cold and nothing phases you anymore. Of course not. You're a human being. You also allowed to tell the other person, what you did for me is not right. We're not talking about it, of course. But when you are able to apply spiritual forgiveness, then probably your judgmental attitude will lessen and even disappear if you practice it enough. So apply that advice, apply the information to your life, forgive other people to your life, understand that it's a great opportunity for the soul to grow. If you're angry at someone, pick up the phone and call them. You can say out loud what's bothering you, but understand that they are not perfect. Neither one of us, no one of us is perfect. And to apply forgiveness, it's such a great way of growth. So learn the topic and try to practice it in your life, specifically if you hold on to forgiveness that has been there for quite a while. So thank you very much. Have a fantastic coming week, and I will talk to you next week with another topic. Take care. Bye.